Do you remember that movie, How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days with Kate Hudson? Well, this is like how to kill an economy in 10 weeks. I mean, maybe 10 days if they actually get their wish list here. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Trish Regan Show. I am Trish. We have to talk about all this crazy inflation. We just got another read on this. This is out of control, folks. I mean, I was talking to a very large business owner recently who was telling me, look, we've never seen anything like this. We have never seen in his career this much inflation in terms of what they're paying. Yes, they're passing some of those costs on to consumers, but they're not all passed on yet. So the 5.3% read we just got, it's getting worse. Plus, General Milley, General Mark Milley. This is turning into one hot story. My gosh. Now, Senator Mark Rubio calling on General Milley to be fired by Joe Biden because if these allegations are true, if in fact he was calling up China in the final days of the Trump presidency and saying, hey, I'm worried that he's so crazy he might do something, and let me just assure you that I will let you know first, well then that's kind of a bit of a problem, right? There are some that are saying it could even be treason. Senator Rand Paul being very outspoken on this issue as well. We're going to talk about all of that. But before we get to that, can we just talk about the Met Gala and that darn stupid, silly dress that Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez chose to wear? It was a white gown with "Tax the Rich" all splattered in red on the back. I mean, the hypocrisy of it is really quite special, shall we say, because don't forget it cost about $35,000 a plate to go to the thing. She and her boyfriend went. She said, oh, that's okay because she's invited as a city official who cares about the arts, as someone who's a representative from New York City, she should be able to go to these things. Well, I mean, if you really want to put the money where the mouth is, right, and you actually really believe in giving back to the people, then maybe you don't don the fancy dress and go to the fancy ball with your basically PR stunt, right? This is like Lady Gaga style, okay? That's what this was. Or Kim Kardashian. I mean, AOC really is just a function of the pop culture world in which we now live. And think about how scary that is, because this is a young lady. Oh, dare I say that? Joe Manchin said that about her over the weekend, and she was highly offended, basically saying, this is basically so patronizing because I am a member of Congress. But anyway, a young lady going to the ball dressed up in that ridiculous outfit. Well, by the way, being there with her designer friend who designed it, who is alongside her billionaire boyfriend. I mean, it's just really quite something, I'll tell you. The hypocrisy is pretty extraordinary. I loved it. There was I don't know if you look at the Babylon Bee, it's a great site. I like their site. It's a phenomenal sort of satire from the conservative viewpoint, right? Just like The Onion was from the left. Anyway, they had a story saying tax the rich. Basically a plane driving off in the sky, flying off in the sky, and in the distance, in the smoke behind it, you see the words "tax the rich" written in the sky, and they're saying that, that's Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez flying off in her private jet. That's basically her, right? The woman's driving a Tesla. She's living the life. She's living the life, all because she's basically a PR stunt, which was exactly what that was. Look, they're talking about taxing not just the rich, but taxing everyone. They want 40 fresh new taxes. That's what they're talking about, because you see, they have a $3.5 trillion stimulus plan that they want to put through that would have all kinds of things in it, like retrofitting public housing and having kindergarten for all. Very noble thing to do, by the way. I don't dispute either of these things. They're both lovely programs. We just can't afford them. They want elderly care at home. Again, wonderful idea, but we can't afford them. And you know what? When it comes to actually spending money on infrastructure, how about spending on things like being prepared for future pandemics? There's no money in there, just this much for that teeny tiny little amount. How about retrofitting our grid so that we can't just be taken offline by anyone who wants to take us offline? I mean, these are real things, but they don't have any money for that. I mean, they have money for all kinds of social programs because we need to rethink infrastructure in a social way, they say. And then they're going to tax the rich to pay for it. I want to get to that coming up because it's crazy what they're talking about, especially when nobody actually pays any taxes. But first, let's talk about what's acting as another tax on Americans right now, and that's inflation. We got to read yesterday on consumer prices. I warned you it was going to be bad, and sure enough it was. 4 straight months in a row, we have an increase of 5% or more in the prices that everyday consumers are paying for goods. Now, the mainstream media was just absolutely thrilled. They said, oh, this is great. You know, inflation is easing somewhat because what? It came in at 5.3 instead of 5.4% as economists expected. Economists just got it wrong, okay? No. We have actually serious price inflation. The prices of goods and services that consumers pay has gone up year over year 5.3%. So we were paying 5.3% less last year. Well, guess what? Last month it went up 5.4%. And the month before that, up 5.4%. And the month up before that, up 5%. You see, there's a trend here. And this is way, way beyond anything normal. And so companies, they're also dealing with this, right? Business owners, small business owners, big business owners, I don't care. They're all paying more. They're all paying more for everything. For commodities, right, that go into whatever good that they're making. They're paying more for labor, although clearly not enough more because real wages are still down compared with inflation. I mean, the cost of everything is going up. And Joe Biden owns this. And Jerome Powell owns this. Jerome Powell, at perhaps the direction of Janet Yellen, who was the ultimate, bibbidi-bobbidi-boo fairy godmother for the stock market all those years during Obama, she just kept printing money. Well, now Jerome's in the same boat. He's going to keep on printing money. I mean, I think they're addicted to printing money. I don't think they have any choice at this point because if they didn't print money and if they didn't buy bonds and mortgage-backed securities like they're doing right now, they say they're going to taper. Well, I'll believe it when I see it. If they didn't do that, then guess what? We'd be paying a whole lot more in terms of interest on our debt. And so this is what you call sophisticated financial engineering that comes at the expense of the middle class and of poor Americans. The very people, by the way, that they keep going on about how they want to help. Well, this is one messed up way of doing it. And you know what? It's important to think about because if you're somebody who's saving for your future, for your retirement, and at some point you might be living on a fixed income, saying I have this much money a month, well, what happens if that income 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now is not worth what it is today? Well, that's exactly what's going to happen with inflation. I've talked about it before. I'll just say it again. You know what? In 1972, the dollar was worth a whole lot more than it is today. In fact, a dollar today is worth, in purchasing power, 15% of what it was in 1972. This is what inflation does. It erodes the ability of people to enjoy a decent lifestyle. And more of it is going to happen because they're going to keep printing more. And they're going to, by the way, keep on printing more money, both at the federal government level, not just the Fed, not just Powell and company, but in terms of what you're seeing from lawmakers, because they, for some reason, think money grows on trees and, everybody should just be taxed more and they'll print more. And we'll have more debt, right? I mean, we will have more debt. By the way, incomes are going down, down, down. When you look at how much money people are making now, it's actually gone down 2.9%, almost 3%. So American incomes have gone down to $67,500. Again, down 2.9%. So income's going down. The value of the dollar is going down. Real wages are going down. Inflation's going up. Not a good scenario, which is why this leads me to the importance of diversifying your portfolio. Make sure that you are invested actually in stocks right now. I mean, you want to be invested until you don't, right? Because at some point, I do think that this is a bubble that's going to potentially burst, which is another reason to be looking at something like gold and diversifying beyond just the stock market. But at this point still, you want to be invested in equities because they're benefiting from this inflation. We can talk a little bit more about that because I don't necessarily think that's going to exist forever. But right now, in the here and now, the equity market is still benefiting from all this money printing that the Fed can't back away from. But the dollar isn't, and the dollar won't over time. And so you have to think about, again, diversification and making sure that you hedge out the inflation issue. I think one of the best ways to do it is to look at precious metals specifically. I mean, for me anyway, I'll just tell you what I do. I look at gold and I invest in gold because I see that as an excellent way for me to hedge whatever's going on elsewhere in terms of the depression of the US dollar, which is only, in my view, going to get worse given the environment we're in. I mean, for goodness sakes, you just can't spend have debt, I should say, of $28 trillion and think you can spend another 3.5 trillion, not to mention all the trillions that they've been spending. I mean, we're well over 6 trillion already into this thing. These are big, massive numbers, a little bit hard to comprehend. But again, that's why I emphasize, look at gold, look at precious metals. And when you do, call my friends at Legacy Precious Metals, LegacyPrecious.com is their website. If you're watching this program on YouTube or on Rumble, I have the number on the screen. It's 866-589-0560. Again, 866-589-0560. You can tell them that Trish Regan sent you. And look, I think it's worth having a conversation. It's worth getting the information to make sure that you know you're going to be protected in light of the inflation. But, again, it's coming at you from every single direction, right? Because whether they're talking about taxing you or whether they're talking about deflating the dollar, thereby giving you less purchasing power, all in, you're just not going to be able to enjoy quite the same lifestyle in an inflationary environment where they all print and they all tax, right? Inflation is like a tax on people. Well, guess what else is a tax on people? Actual taxes. And they're talking about 40 new taxes. So they want to up income taxes. They want to up taxes on small businesses. They want to up taxes on big businesses. They've got all kinds of things in there. They want a healthcare tax. I mean, look, I don't get it, because 61% of Americans paid no tax whatsoever last year. And they're sitting there saying, people need to pay more, pay more, pay more. Well, people are paying a lot. And when you do this, all you're going to do is drive more money when it comes to corporations overseas, right? That's exactly what we saw during the Obama administration. I used to call them shotgun marriages. When, one company, an American company, would suddenly buy a company in Ireland, because guess what? In Ireland, the tax rate is 12.5% corporate tax rate. So suddenly the American company relocates to Ireland. Of course, right? I mean, those were those shotgun, they called them tax inversion deals. But I just call them shotgun marriages. Because it was like, boom, I'm marrying you because I got your great tax rate. Well, that's what's going to happen. And then all that money goes overseas. I mean, one of the best things that the Trump administration did, was they brought all that capital back onshore by offering a 21% corporate tax rate, which was at least more competitive. These guys want to hike it way back up again. I mean, it's really mind-boggling, but it shows you how dangerous this populist Bernie Sanders AOC message is. And by the way, I don't disagree that the middle class has gotten squeezed, and it's not right. And by the way, our elites have benefited in serious ways that are quite damaging, I think, to the fabric of this country, to our middle class. But the answer isn't to do what they're talking about, because you know what, you're not going to get blood from a stone, or as Margaret Thatcher said at some point in socialism, the problem with socialism is you run out of other people's money, right? I mean, we actually have that in a t-shirt at trishregan.store, which has done really well, because I think that does resonate with a lot of people. But look, I think ultimately we need some adults in the room. I again commend Senator Joe Manchin for being that adult, right? And making some of these tough statements that need to be made right now. I do want to get to General Milley here quickly before I leave you, because this is kind of something, right? We've now learned through Bob Woodward, and that's, look, I mean, you have to take everything with a grain of salt, because there were a lot of things allegedly that were not correct in some of his previous books on the previous administration. So I would just say, we got to get sort of to the bottom of this. But if in fact true, it really suggests a problem in that we don't have a normal chain of command, right? Then the president's not really in charge. When we talk about deep state and the concerns about deep state, and whether that's the State Department or the military, those concerns get validated when we hear a story like this. In this particular case, apparently General Milley was so worried about Donald Trump in the final days of his presidency, and China allegedly was so worried that Donald Trump would do something crazy, like, attack them, that General Milley called his counterpart in China and said, look, don't worry, he's not going to do that. I just want to communicate that. And by the way, if he does do anything crazy, I'm going to let you know first. So that's kind of bad, right? If our military is not willing to take orders from the president, who is ultimately the commander-in-chief. And so as a result of this, you have Marco Rubio, senator from Florida, calling for General Milley to be fired by Joe Biden. You also have Senator Rand Paul being very outspoken on this. And you have Donald Trump himself, the former president, saying, you know what, if this is true, and I kind of doubt it's true because, he should have known me well enough that that was not in the discussion in any way, shape, or form. But if it were true, then yeah, that would be treason. So there's going to be, I think, some more developments in this story. And, it may be a question of whether or not Woodward got his reporting right. If he did, then I think some heads might actually roll, right? Anyway, we'll see. I do want to remind you, go to my website, trishintel.com, subscribe to my podcast there, subscribe to my newsletter. Everything is free. I am here every single day for you because I know how important it is that truth be told. It's not so easy sometimes these days to get the real truth and nothing but the truth, but I promise you that's what you always get from me. trishintel.com. Please make sure that you go there, you subscribe to the newsletter, you download this podcast, you like the video if you're watching on Rumble or on YouTube, and you make sure that you subscribe to the station. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you again tomorrow.